Hello guys, this is Movie Lover and welcome to this Movie Lover world. Today we're going to explain a drama romance movie called Adore. The opening scene of the movie shows two young girls, Lil and Roz, racing through the woods to get to the beach. At the beach, they have fun as the girls look into each other's eyes smiling. There is a time difference as the scene transitions to their older self. Up next, Lil and her family members are seen at her husband's burial. Lil comforts her son Ian as they lure the deceased man into his grave moments. Later, Tom, Roz's son, takes Ian to the beach to have fun. While the two boys surf, there is another time difference with Tom and Ian now in their teenage selves. Roz and Lil admire their son from afar. As they surf later that day, Roz and Lil look at a picture album. Ian and Tom come inside the house. Ian looks at the album and reminisces over his deceased dad at dinner that evening. The two mothers and their sons chat after dinner while playing a game of cards. Tom's father Harold comes in and greets them. Shortly, Lil goes over to her apartment, which is beside her friends. Moments later, Tom's father informs Roz, his wife, that he has been offered a job at a university in Sydney. He tells Roz that he would like them to move over to Sydney. Roz wakes during the night and goes downstairs to take a drink. She sees Ian's room light on. Roz goes to pick the photo album Ian was looking at, thinking he was asleep. Just then, Ian calls her name gently. The following day, Saul, a friend of Lil's late husband, invites Lil to his birthday. But Lil tells him she will not be. Later that day, Roz and Harold argue about Roz not wanting to move with Harold to Sydney. Harold says Roz doesn't want to leave Lil, probably because they are Letzos. Roz assures Harold she will move with him, but she needs time to adjust. At the beach that evening, Roz and Lil say they are not less but best friends. Up next, Harold says goodbye to his family as he drives off. Roz goes to take a swim and sees Ian. While doing so, the duo lay down in the sun. By nightfall, the four are seen having fun at dinner. Roz and Ian look into each other's eyes. A little while later, Lil goes home, leaving Ian behind. Roz, who's still awake, walks around the house when Ian comes over and the two lock lips and make love. Meanwhile, Tom wakes and comes to the kitchen to get a drink. Tom sees his mother tiptoeing out of Ian's room with her clothes in her hand. A sad Tom goes to the beach and sleeps there overnight. The following morning, Tom goes over to Lil's apartment. Lil assumes that Tom came to see Ian, but he said no. While the duo is chatting, Tom kisses Lil, but she stops him, telling him Ian could have walked in. Then Tom tells Lil what he witnessed last night. Lil exclaims that it's impossible on getting back home. Ian asks Tom if he is coming to surf, but Tom says no. Lil drives over to Raz's gallery, probably to challenge her. But she changes her mind and goes back home. Later that night, Tom goes over to Lil's apartment and begs her to let him stay the night. Tom stands up during the night and goes over to sleep beside Lil in her bedroom. Upon waking the next morning, the duo makes love to each other. Tom arrives home and his mother asks him where he's been. Tom tells her that he slept at Lil's place and reveals to her that he did to Lil what Ian has been doing to her. Roz slaps him and he leaves. Afterward, later that day, Roz goes over to Lil's workplace. The duo tells each other that they have crossed the line, and they both agreed to never let it happen again. At home, Lil informs her son that Roz came to see her and wants the whole thing to stop. Ian acknowledges to her mother that he loves Roz. Some time passes. Ian goes to see Roz, but she tells him that it's over. Roz gets home and finds Ian there. She tells him to leave, but a little while later they make love to each other. Tom and Lil are seen making love to each other in another scene. Up next, Lil and Roz discuss how happy they are at the moment. Lil tells Roz she doesn't want to stop. Shortly afterward, Harold arrives home. Harold asks Tom if he has a girlfriend because he looks happy. Later that evening, Roz looks worried. Harold asks her what is bothering her. She gives him no answer. He then mentions if it's about Tom's girlfriend, but Roz changes the discussion. Tom and Ian are seen cleaning their surfboards. When Harold comes out to take a smoke, Ian looks at him disgustingly and leaves back in the room. Roz informs Harold that she and Tom are not ready to move at the moment. Harold gets angry and disappointed, but Roz tells him that she is sorry. Shortly after, Harold leaves for Sydney, where he starts a new life with another wife. Up next, Lil is telling Roz as they lie down by the beach that she needs to find a way of making Saul give up on wooing her. Just then they spot Tom and Ian fighting each other in the water, trying to terminate each other. Moments later, they stop fighting while the four walk home. Saul drives by and says hello. At home, Ian applies antiseptics on Tom's wound. Later on, they have dinner together. A little while later, Tom leaves for Lil's room as Ian leaves for Roz's room. The next scene shows Lil sleeping on the couch when Saul walks in. Saul confesses his love to Lil in front of Roz. Saul leaves angrily when he gets no for an answer, concluding Roz and Lil are Lesos. The four are then seen having fun at the beach. Ian and Tom discuss a movie production opportunity presented to Tom in Sydney. While driving, Tom tells Ian that he doesn't want to go because of Lil, but Ian tells him that Lil wouldn't want him to miss a big opportunity like that. Some time passes. Tom is seen at an audition in Sydney where she meets Mary. Back home, Lil receives a call from Tom at dinner. Lil tells Roz and Ian that Tom is fascinated by a girl he meets in Sydney. She acts jealous, but Roz and Ian tell her not to worry. Back in Sydney, Tom escorts the girl Mary to her apartment. In her apartment, the duo lock lips. Roz, Ian and Lil are having fun in a bar when Richard approaches Lil. Lil and Richard get to know each other. Ian drives his mother home, telling her everything will be alright as she seems unhappy due to Tom's absence. Mary is seen performing at a theater as Tom looks at her from backstage. Tom tells Harold that he has to go back home. Harold promises to come over for Tom's street birthday. Upon getting back home, Tom joins the other three having dinner when a call comes in for Tom. The caller turns out to be Mary. Lil looks at Tom from the table with jealousy. Sometimes pass and Harold comes over with Mary to visit Tom for his birthday, with Harold leaving his new family behind in Sydney. At Tom's birthday party, Lil is jealous as she watches Tom and Mary dancing. Tom introduces Mary to Lil. Tom drives Mary to her motel after the party. The next day, Roz is comforting Lil as she cries. Roz tells Lil that it's time for them to put an end to the relationship between them and their sons. The next day, Roz and Lil inform their sons of their decision. Ian gets angry and walks away, claiming Tom's relationship shouldn't have affected his own relationship with Roz. The next scene shows Tom and Mary getting married in a church at Tom's wedding after party. Roz watches with jealousy as Ian dances with another lady. A little while later, Ian comes over and has a chat with Roz. Afterward, he leaves the party with another girl very early. The following day, Ian knocks on Roz's door, but she doesn't open the door. Roz cries as she listens to Ian's receding footsteps. Up next, Ian is injured while surfing. At the hospital, Lil tells Ian that Raz would love to visit him, but he says no. Just then, a lady Hannah comes in with flowers. Some time pass and Hannah can be seen helping Ian out on his recovery at home. While Hannah and Ian sleep, Ian calls out for Roz from his dream. In the next scene, Tom and Ian are seen discussing their love life. After their chat, Ian gets back home to hear the news Hannah is pregnant. Some time passes and Roz and Lil can be seen having fun at the beach with their sons and grandchildren. A little while later, Hannah and Mary leave with the children. Ian then scoffs and asks Tom, Roz and Lil if they are comfortable with how they live now. He receives no response. Later that night, Lil reads the children a bedtime story and goes home. But before she goes, Tom tells Lil that he will soon return to Sydney. Lil says she hopes to see him before he goes on her way home. Lil is teary. Tom excuses himself from the family discussion. Lil sits on the couch crying when Tom comes in. The duo then make love to each other. During their act, Ian sees them. Ian immediately goes back to the other apartment and tells Roz he wants to see her. Ian screams at Raz inside the room. Ian laments that Raz made him stop their relationship. While Lil and Tom have clearly been enjoying each other, while Ian is busy shouting at Roz, Hannah and Mary come inside the room and hear everything. Mary and Hannah, feeling betrayed, Hannah and Mary take their children and leave. Ian cries inside his car. Afterward, the following morning, Tom comes home to find out from his mother what happened in the room. Lil explains to Roz that what happened was only casual and wasn't going to last. The four are seen lying down in the sun together as the movie comes to an end. Movie lover will meet you again with new story. Till take care.